Yeah, sorry, continue.
That's okay, no worries. It's the same. It's the book that started the Yes, You Can Be a Writer is almost the same one that stopped the dream of being a writer for so many years, and that's The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Like those magical, epic fantasy worlds, they just made me feel like there's more out here. There's magic to be had, and I can create it because I can see it. I'm reading it, and I can see it in my mind. And witches and wizards and all of these incredible creatures. It just set me on fire. It was like, I want a piece of that. So I remember vividly writing a story. It was 12 pages, folded A4, and I'd done all my illustrations, and it was called The Princess and the Orb. And I remember presenting it to a relative, and he kind of flipped through it. And I'm sort of like all on tenterhooks, like, oh my goodness, what are you going to say about it? I think I was about 8. And he then, at the end of it, in that kind of adult way that people do, he was making like an offhand remark. He just said, oh, well, it's not Lord of the Rings, is it? And I was like, oh, no, it isn't. And what I should have said at the time was, of course it isn't. I'm 8. I haven't written like thousands of pages. It's 12 pages. But what I heard was, you're never going to be good enough. You're never going to be able to write something that magical. And because Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all of those fantasy worlds were my thing, it was an immediate shutdown for me. In fact, it took me a long while to even be able to reread Lord of the Rings and like pick the books up again. And even when the films came out, I couldn't watch them immediately because it was such a pain point. But as I've healed the wound in myself, that desire to create those magical worlds is still there. And although I have started writing some non-fiction, my ultimate aim is to get back into that because it just sets me on fire.
It truly is. I think I don't understand. Maybe it's a type of personality, a type of person you are, but I don't understand people who like. There are people who read only, biographies and, dry, hard data, history. If
It's boring.
it is. It truly is. I don't know why people are reading statistics of ships that leave from the port of Venice from 1550 to 1563. Who cares? Like, who cares? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. I love history and I love art and
The
don't.
people who stay in those lanes and only read those books, they're missing out on
Yes.
so much all these colourful fantasy, science
Yeah.
fictional, dystopian
So
worlds.
how do you try to actually help, burgeoning writers in their process?
So I think for me, it always comes down to whether they're clear on their concepts. So if there's like what I call a contradictory concept in the writing and the story itself, they're going to be stuck. But more often than not, what it really comes down to is a lack of belief in their own internal authority, that they know what they're doing, that they've created this world and it deserves to be shared. Because you know what? You can edit a book, a manuscript, to within an inch of its life, but you can't edit the blank page. You have to get those first words out. So for me, I spend a lot of time just trying to get people to just like word vomit the story, get something out there that we can then work on. We can edit it, we can polish it up, but it's just trying to kind of separate them from the fear of putting it out there. It's like all we're doing right now, stay in the present moment, stay in the now, and just tell the story. Tell it for yourself, for no one else, just for yourself right now, and we'll fix it later.
Yeah, we'll edit it in post.
Exactly.
We'll edit it out in post. But I found I had a guy, a friend. This will be. It's in Hebrew, so it's meaningless for you. But it's they done some the thing that the editors did to that book, to this book. It's a wonderful book. Now it's supposed to be a YA kind of novel,
Yeah.
like a young adult. Very, very terse, very brief, short, as you see, and it's a wonderful reading. But the editors just butchered the French out of it. I'm not going
Yeah.
to
I hear you. And that's the thing,
yeah,
particularly with traditional publishing, because they're so focused on the market that it's going into and, selling the book, they kind of forget or don't care so much about the essence of the story and the author's thoughts. They're just like, well, this is what needs to be put out there. This is how we can make it work. Whereas when I'm talking to people and helping them write, I'm really interested in them staying true to themselves and the story. As okay, there's always going to be thoughts and things we can improve upon, but let's try and keep that core idea, that core essence, as true to the original as we can.
yeah. So when did you decide that you would like to branch off or start a publishing house, independent, if I get that
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
a kind of a indie. I like,
Yeah, I like indie.
I don't like when they say indie or alternative or subversive. Yeah, like why is it subversive? Like why? It's just art. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't
I
matter
think,
if you
well,
have
they
10.
kind of like
Yeah,
to wear it like a
sorry.
badge, don't they?
Yeah. Like why? It's indie. It's subversive. It's yeah. It's counteractive. It's counterculture. No, it's not. But I'm sorry for that tirade,
It's
and
all right.
now I
No,
will.
it's good. It's nice to see your passion. It really is.
Yes.
But in terms of when I branched off, it was about 3 or 4 years ago now. So I'd been doing design work, and it wasn't just books I was designing. I was doing, social media, graphics, etc., branching out as you do. And I remember a regular client coming to me saying, I'm writing a book. What do you know about book design? And I said, well, actually, I know loads. I just hadn't told her. And that conversation just kind of grew into, she was saying she didn't feel confident. How much of the process did I know? Could I help her? And then she just posed the question. She said, well, will you publish it for me? And I had this kind of moment where I sat with myself and sort of felt into it. I was like, yeah, okay, why not? I just literally just metaphorically jumped off the building. I didn't really think about it. I just said yes, and then thought I'll figure the rest out as I go. Because I did know enough. But it's one of those things of, well, I've never set up in any kind of publishing company before. Do I really know how to do it? But I said yes, and here we are a few years later.
So, what do you seek to do, or what types of titles would you like to get published and add to your roster and your publishing house? What type of name would you like to make for yourself or for your publishing company?
I think for me, it's about the visionaries, the people who aren't afraid to tell stories, the taboo, the stuff that people can't get published elsewhere, the stuff that people are afraid to say. Because you know what, I've been one of those people who's afraid to stake my claim in the ground. I mean, I'm working with someone, I've been working with her for quite a long time now, and I'm helping her produce some books. She's gathering a load of authors, they're all contributing a chapter, and it's on sacred sexuality. She has done a lot of work with the archetype of Lilith. So Adam and Eve, the first wife of Adam was Lilith. And they're the stories that have kind of been lost in time. The things that people are afraid to talk about, the ancient wisdoms that have been lost. Those are the things that I want to bring to the surface.
Yeah, I completely get that. It's a topic that fascinates me to no end. I have a beautiful book for you to read, or a recommendation,
Thank you.
called "The Gods of Ecstasy" and something
Nice.
else. It's by a French anthropologist, a very famous one. At least in his own circles, in the European circles, he's called Daniel Danielu, and
Thank you.
I will write his name
Brilliant.
in the chat. And he talks about the two deities, Dionysus and Shiva.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He talks about all their kind of ventures and escapades, to be very mild, shall we say. But he truly, dissects, the history and stuff like this. Gods of Ecstasy and something else. But do you have any closing statements?
I think for me, it's just about telling people that, trusting yourself, trusting what you know, trusting your abilities when you're trying to tell a story, and really tune into who you are, what you stand for, and just know where you want to go with it, and stay true to that.
Yeah, this has been a lovely conversation, very fascinating, very enriching, and I promise you that we'll have a following conversation if you.
That would be cool. That would be great.
Yes.
I would love that.
So we have to dedicate more time to actually delve into the the more mystical side of things.
Definitely.
Lilith comes from my own culture, the Judaism, but that's fine. It's just an arbitrary kind of term for the sacred, the divine. Yeah. So thank you so much, Camilla Fellas Arnold.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Don't forget to subscribe to our Patreon. Sorry, a tongue twister.
Good.